What's up, everybody? All right. Let's see what we got here. Oh, we already got some games going on actually right now, which is hilarious. Rice and Mississippi State are already playing, and they're in Houston. So their game started. They're in the third inning, so their game must have started at 12:05. 1:03 p.m. Oh wait, no. If they're in the third inning, it says on my screen 1:03 p.m. What's up, guys? Buck first. That's right. Or no, Canes is first, I think. No, Buck was first. I have like the chat on two things. Cougs, what's up, man? Buck was watching the Rice game. Yeah, we could pull that up and watch. Actually, a kid I coach in high school, his brother plays for Rice. We have them right where we want them. 98% fan vote is on the Gators. I saw that, Canes. I saw your tweet this morning. And actually, I was talking on the phone this morning with Dusty, and he was asking what time the live was going to start. He said he was going to be. He said he's going to try to ruffle some feathers, Canes. He's going to try to make. He's going to tell you the Gators are sweeping. Let's see. And actually, so just so you know, I mean, one of my former clients, actually, that I personally work with, Michael Zito, is the starting shortstop for Rice, and he's hitting 364 on the year. He's off to a good start. And then the kid I coach, he's in the 3 hole. He's DHing for them. But Zito for Rice was, I think the question marks for him was he was a very good defensive shortstop. One of those kids, you watch him play short in high school, and you know he can play shortstop at the Division I level at a lot of schools. And the question was, okay, what level of is his bat? And right now he's doing a great job at Rice. I know his family, I think, went to Rice when I was talking to his dad. So it was a pretty easy decision for them. What happened to Rice used to be a big time program. I think it's one of those things, Buck, where as like the ACC and the SEC, and not right, this applies to all the Pac-12, former Pac-12 schools. Like as the ACC and the SEC, and particularly like the Southeast, became the just a bigger and bigger and bigger hub of baseball. Schools like Rice kind of fell off because now they're not in a premium conference. And again, you have a legendary head coach there in Wayne Graham, and you're going to want to go play for that guy. But as soon as he leaves, and then you're not in a premium conference, and you add on some other stuff, it just becomes it becomes harder for them to compete when they're not in a premium conference. Who's starting tonight for the U? Nick, Robert, the dog. We have better pitching, defense, and base running, Dusty. Patrick, I'm out on the West Coast. Looking forward to the UC Irvine game tonight. Nice. We'll find out tonight if we have the better bats. Wasn't Rice Big 12 at one point? Well, we can look it up right here. Let's see. Someone look that up for me. I want to go through some of these other scores. I'm not sure, just to be honest. No, never in the Big 12. That's what I thought. They were always kind of like Conference USA, and they were always in kind of a mid-major conference. Just because Big 12, like that, Rice, like all their other sports, are not nearly as big time as the baseball program was for like a long time, right? Like the early 2000s, Rice was up there with all the best. We have Virginia, Dartmouth starting at 3, Georgia, Florida Gulf Coast at 3, LSU, Kansas State at 3. Rice was in the SWC until it broke up in 1996. So quasi big conference, yeah. Let's see what our boy Michael Zito's doing on the year so far for Rice. I'm just checking up on him. He's got 4 hits and 10 at bats with a home run. He had a walk-off home run, which I think was his first collegiate hit. And he's got 1 strikeout, no walks, only 10 at bats. But it looks like he's kind of one thing with Rice. Like if you look at their team, a lot of their guys have kind of gotten off to slow starts. So he's kind of like Zito, like I said, was a very good defender at shortstop. Can turn a double play really well, gets rid of it quickly, good arm strength, just soft hands, like very good defensive shortstop. And the question was like, is his bat going to be good enough? And I think Rice was a great fit for him just because even if his bat didn't turn out to be really good, like the defense alone was going to get him a lot of playing time. But is Rice now even on the level of DBU, East Carolina, Troy, Louisiana? No. To be honest, not even close, really. Not even close to those schools. Like I saw the 2 brothers that are committed to Gulf Coast yesterday. Yeah, Buck, they're not nearly like right now. They're 2-5. They're 2-5 on the year. They did lose to like Michigan, Virginia, USC, and Arizona. So 4, big schools. But in the previous years, like they have definitely not been on par with like a DBU or a Troy, East Carolina. Since you have experience with recruiting there, do they hold to higher academic standards given the university is a higher standard? No, no, not really, Buck. I mean, like let's just use Georgia Tech for example. Like as an athlete, if you are offered a scholarship, athletic scholarship, the requirements like are way lower to get in. Now that doesn't mean the classes are going to be even harder or even easier, but what it does mean is like your barrier to entry, like you're not having to put out if you're on an athletic scholarship, you're not having to put up a 4.0 and like a high SAT score and all that stuff. Now, if you are a walk on, you have to. There's a bare, like if you're a preferred walk on, there's like a minimum SAT score that's not as high as, again, like your average student, but it's higher than a scholarship athlete. And then if you're just a pure walk on, like you got to get it on your own. Right. So it's just, there's different tiers now because Rice is, again, like you said, it's higher academic, but it's not like the Ivy League where you're still going to have really good grades, really good test scores. Zach told me you were their advisor. They were playing on PG last night. The team they had was loaded, Georgia team. Yeah, they go to Blessed Trinity. Aiden and Carson Zagrin. They are really good. Like they are really good. That team, Blessed Trinity, is unbelievably stacked. If they don't win the state championship, I will be very surprised. But yeah, they're very talented. No Jordan on live today. I think he may be joining in a little bit. I'll text him now, Dusty. Are preferred walk-ons even a thing any longer with new roster rules? Yeah, they will be because you can only give out 34, right? So now, with the new rules, like you can have 38 guys on your team in the fall, and then you have to cut down to 34 at the end of the fall. So you will still have room for preferred walk-ons, like 4 extra guys, essentially. So there will be room for preferred walk-ons. Again, it's not. And to be honest, like this is the interesting thing, Buck, is that like I've told you guys, college coaches are trying to get guys committed for the least amount of money possible. So there's some players who, like, let's say they're a really good player, like they're viewed as a scholarship athlete, but the family has a lot of money. They're in state. They're going to get academic money. Sometimes you try to get those guys for no athletic money, and guys will take those offers. So just because you're like, there's different levels of preferred walk on. There's the guy who you're like, he may be all right. We're gonna give him a shot. And then there's this guy, hey, we love this guy, and family's got a lot of money. Like, let's see if we can get him for nothing. And if he balks at that, we'll make him an offer. And some of those guys will commit. Now, as scholarship numbers are going up, you're going to see less of that, right? Because players will start to take that as like, oh, you really like me? You have 20 scholarships available or whatever, and I can't get anything. Like, that's not going to work anymore. But under the old system, like with 11.7, you were able to get guys like that sometimes. Do you think the new college eligibility rules are helping or hurting the game? I don't like that guys are playing like 6 or 7 years, Coach. So to me, I think it's hurting the game in some level because like already baseball is a tough sport to get recruited in because just the exposure, it's much harder to get exposure as a baseball player. One, because like think about college football recruiting. They just go to high school games. Like they just go to high school games and like 7-on-7s. And so like you don't need to go play travel ball in the summer for 3 months if you're a football player. Well, in baseball, you have to do that. Basketball is kind of similar. But it's tough, right? It's just, so I don't think it's good. I'll say it like that. Whole team was committed to a Georgia school, but the 8 and 9 hole hitter. Yeah. I mean, their team is loaded. Their shortstop is going to Oklahoma State, I believe. Their team is just loaded. That's going to be your school next year. We have to put your recruiter hat on. Yeah, right. Dusty, but should also be mentioned, scholarship percentage has direct correlation with opportunity. I know you disagree with that, but just the truth. Coaches want ROI. Yeah, I mean, you're not, again, generally speaking, that is true. Generally speaking, right? Because in every scenario, that's not true, but in a lot of them, that is true. You know, you give a kid a 75% scholarship, it's because you think he's going to play. Now, if he falls flat on his face in the fall and looks terrible, he ain't going to play. But he's, like you said, that he can have a lot more room to fail. The first 2 weeks, if he looks bad, you're not going to give up on him. But, the whole fall, he looks terrible. He still may even have a little bit of time in the spring to kind of try to look better. So you're generally speaking, you're right. And is that the bigger the scholarship, the more highly they think of you, typically. All right, so Mississippi State already out to a 3-0 lead against Rice. Dusty, are you on call today, by the way? Are you calling the Georgia Tech game? Tennessee, Oklahoma State, that'll be a great game at 4:05. No call, Griff duty. Nice. Yeah, Mississippi State already out to a 3-0 lead. It's tough to see. Like again, Rice is a good program, but it's like I think a lot of people think of it as it was 20 years ago, and it's not anywhere close to that at this point. What's your opinion on NAIA ball versus JUCO or D2 or D3? Again, Coach, it's the same. Again, there's D1s that are terrible, right? There's D1 schools that are terrible. The same is true at the D2 level, D3, and NAIA. Now, there's some NAIA, D2, and D3 schools that are really good. There's probably less numbers of them the lower down you go, but like University of Tampa can compete with any school in Division I, right? They may not have quite the depth of like a top-tier SEC or ACC team, but University of Tampa's got dudes. They get 5 or 6 guys drafted every year. So as you go down, just the depth of talent will decrease and the overall kind of ceiling of talent will decrease, but it doesn't mean they can't compete. Like West Georgia, for example, transfer from D2, played really well against Georgia Tech on Wednesday, and they did have a lot of transfers, but typical of Division II guys is you're going to have, again, you may not have like the high talent player, but you have the experienced like 3 or 4 year player who what you're going to get, knows what he's doing, not going to get phased. In my opinion, any given day, the best NAIA team could beat middle of the ACC team. Yeah, I mean I think that's fair. I think that's fair, right? At NAIA, there may be 1 or 2 teams that can do that. At Division, the higher you go up, there's more. At Division II, there's maybe 7 or 8 teams, maybe 9, 10 teams, right, that could do that. So just like the lower you go down, there's less teams that are capable of competing with like the teams in the best conference in Division I. But and again, like what you see in the midweek with mid-majors is they run out of pitching depth, right? That those teams that can compete, they will run out of pitching depth a lot faster. Thoughts on going to a low mid-major? Smitty, man, like the most important thing is you're going somewhere. Here's what you want to do. You want to go to a place, one, where you're going to get a chance to play, but you want to go to a winning place, right? So if it's a low mid-major and they always do well in conference, and they're, again, at a low mid-major, really the only way you're getting to the College World or the NCAA tournament is winning your conference championship. So if you're getting recruited by a low mid-major, like how do they do in conference every year? Look at the last 3 years. How have they done in conference? Are they playing in the conference tournament? Or have they won a couple conference championships? Like that's a place you want to be because you're winning. You're going to play better on a winning team, and you're going to have a shot probably in the 4 years you're there, or maybe 6 years you're there to play for in the NCAA tournament. So that's what I would look at. Dude, there's some bad baseball even in the ACC. Yeah, there is. And right, especially defensively, if you have a really solid, like so many of these teams lose on a weekly basis because they don't play good defense. Again, they don't fill up the zone. So if you have a Division II or Division III team that's really good And they do those things like that. You on any given day, you can beat any team, right? And to be honest, how I see baseball going now, so many of these kids, like when they're facing like a mid-major midweek, they're like, yeah, we're going to kill these guys, and then they get beat. So can you imagine like what these guys would say if they were facing like a Division III or Division II school? They would probably be like, oh, we're about to wipe the floor with these guys, and then all of a sudden they're down like 4 runs in the fifth. Again, do I think the ACC team wins like 7 out of 10? Probably, but that other team wins 3 out of 10, right? So on any given weekend, those 3 wins could happen on the same weekend. It's certainly not a 50-50 split just because of the pitching depth, but they're games, right? They're not getting beat 30-0, which is, I think, what people think. People think that like if a middle of the pack ACC school faced a Division III, that it's going to be 50-0 or whatever. Like it's not going to happen. Then we saw the NAI school last night or 2 nights ago beat a Division I team. Especially that clip of the catcher yesterday sitting on his knees with the game on the line. Yeah. I mean, we watched it yesterday, and again, it's like, you have a lot of people, and I hate to say this because I don't like being this guy, because I don't really believe that you have to have played at a high level to be a good coach or like kind of know what you're talking about. I always just say it like this. It's a pretty good indicator that you know what you're talking about. When you have no experience at a high level in the game, like I'm going to take everything you say with a grain of salt until like things start to match up, things start to work, things start to line up. What I see in a lot of the one knee down things are a lot of people who've got about 3 years around the game telling people that have been around the game their whole life or played at the highest level, coached at the highest level, that you're an idiot and I know everything, which is kind of like, that is like the baseball world in general right now. You have guys like Teacher Man that like have literally convinced thousands of people that he's like figured out this secret. And like he gets exposed almost on a daily basis, and people are like, they just don't understand. It's like, that's what cult members say, right? He's like, oh, you just don't understand it. You don't get it. How dare you attack the leader? Like the leader, how dare, like if I make a video on Teacher Man, I get like 300 comments of people saying, you just don't understand it. Haha, you sucked. You hit 290 you hit 290 in your career. Your slugging percentage was under 400. I'm like, yeah, I didn't have a lot of power, but they'll say you suck. Right. So like that's what the baseball conversation looks like now. It's like a bunch of guys you got guys who played the big leagues or in the Hall of Fame saying, I don't know if that's how you should be teaching a 10-year-old how to hit. And they're like, he's an idiot. And he's a Hall of Famer. Go watch Miami on the back end of a Sunday game. It's just terrible baseball. We're poking the bear here now. Zach and Canes are about to really freak out. I was watching a game last weekend. I had to look up what division the 2 teams were. D1. I was shocked. It wasn't good. Yeah, and like that's the other thing is like people, and this is how most kids think that are going through the process. When they think Division I, they think Power 4. Like that's what they think of Division I. They're not thinking about like there's 300 Division I schools. They're not thinking about like the obscure Division I school that no one's ever heard of that loses 40 games a year. And if given the opportunity, they're like, "Oh yeah, I want to go there because it's D1." It's like, dude, you're not gonna have fun there, man. You're not gonna win. You're not gonna get developed. And then like a D2 program that wins 40 plus games a year and is a top 10 Division II program that has good facilities, they're like, it's Division II. It's crazy. I love those videos on Teacher Man. At the end of the day, you are your best hitting coach. Yeah. Again, like everyone's different. You cannot cookie cut and make everyone do the same thing, and that's what he does. But then the other thing what you understand is why the Teacher Man thing is such a cult is because whenever you're like, well, you said this and that's wrong, or you call something out, right? Whatever one of his things he teaches. One of the things all of his followers and members of the cult say is, you just don't understand it. You're wrong. He actually didn't say that. You just can't comprehend the genius of Richard Skank or something. I don't know how you say his last name. Which is like fine. I'm not even like a big hater of him. I just don't agree with him. And when you make a video, like in every video I've done, I've basically just said I don't agree with this. I've even said like people with certain swing issues like that could work for. And they're like, no, you just don't understand. You don't get it. Like it works for everybody. It's amazing. And they say it's the high level path, and it's how Barry Bonds hit, and it's how Manny Ramirez and all these guys. And you're like, okay, if it's the highest level path and it's like the perfect swing, why does Aaron Judge swing and miss like 30, like the highest whiff rate in the big leagues? Why does he swing and miss at pitches in the zone at such a high rate? Like, make it make sense to me. It's the high level path that swings and misses in the zone at an alarming rate. But then he says, well, look at his numbers. It doesn't matter about his whiff rate. Well, it's like, yeah, because he hits the ball at the highest exit velocity in the major leagues. And it's not because of his swing. It's because he's how big he is, how strong he is, his leverage. Talk through what you think most kids actually value: gear, facilities, coaches, swag, opportunity, academics, geographic location, etc. in recruiting. Number one, like, and generally speaking, they value, most kids, like all they value is Division One. Like that's the number one thing. Number two, it's like the gear, the facilities, swag, like that, right? There now, I would say up there, you do have a lot of kids who do value academics, and maybe that's the parents kind of pushing that on them. But that is something you hear a lot, and we hear a lot. But one of the things you got to kind of hammer out of these kids' mentalities is that, like the D1 or bust mentality. It's like, and the way I say it is this: I always ask kids when I work with them or when I'm meeting with them, like, what's your goal? Like, what's your goal in this game? Like, what do you want to do? And they always say, well, I mean, end of the day, I want to play in the big leagues. And so I say, so your number one value on where you should go to a school should be based on getting on the field as fast as possible, right? And they say, yeah. And then I try to be like, okay, so what if that's a Division II school? Are you okay with that? And they may say, well, I don't know if I want to go to a Division II school. I'm like, I'm not saying you have to, or that's where you're going to end up. But what if that is the best opportunity? Are you willing to do it? And if they say yes, then it's like, boom, green light. Why do you think it's Division One? Strictly clout, social media? What's the deal? Yeah, it's the clout and social media posts that they get to make after they've committed, right? And they commit, and then in a year and a half, they're cut after their freshman fall, and they're going down to a JUCO or a lower level division because they thought they were going to be the outlier, not the rule, right? And a lot of these kids have had friends that came up kind of right at the end of kind of the old system in recruiting, and so they think, well, my buddy, he went to Georgia, and I'm, metrics wise, performance, I'm like the same. I'm doing as good as him. Like and it's like, dude, it's a totally different era now. Like they're recruiting they recruit way less high school players now. I think most kids want Division One thinking that is the best way to get to the MLB. Yeah, you're right. They do. And don't get me wrong, Division One, like if you perform at Division One, you got a great shot at getting drafted high. But like if you're on the bench, right? There's 34 guys on the roster next year. 8 of those guys are position players that play. Let's call it 10 or 11 that kind of get playing time throughout the year. And then the rest of them are pitchers. 4 starters. All right, so that's 16. And then let's say you're going to have like 5 or 6 bullpen arms you really depend on. Right? Outside of that, like your other guys are throwing, but like they're not throwing in meaningful games. They're not a prospect, because if you're not throwing in a meaningful game, then you can't be that good. And so ultimately there's like 10 or 15 guys on a team that are basically just not doing anything. Kyle, can you do a look into Kansas? Kansas State or Kansas, Zach? And do a little look into the stats, why they're 8-0 and win 1 RPI. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it right now. Oh, yeah, Kansas is balling right now. Holy cow. All right, we're looking at Kansas here. Let me pull it up for the boys. Okay, yeah, we got everything here. It's just status and uneducated parenting. Yeah, that 100%. That's exactly what it is. Kansas got them pulled up. Okay. One of the first things you notice, 313 as a team in 8 games. They've put up 80 runs in 8 games. They're scoring 10 runs a game. Right, so they're putting up a lot of runs. Craig Counsell's son, Brady Counsell, on the Kansas Jayhawks. 1 double, 1 home run, 2 stolen bases. They are hitting nukes. They got 15 home runs in 8 games. So they're basically hitting 2 home runs a game. Add on 12 doubles and 3 triples. Like, they are slugging. They're slugging 535 as a team. That's one of the best numbers I've seen, actually, of the teams we've looked at. On base percentage is good. They got 50 walks in 330 plate appearances, which is fine. They have 11 hit by pitch, so you got to add basically 61 free passes, only 55 strikeouts. They're not striking out at a high rate. They're basically walking to striking out at the same rate, and they're slugging. So they're offensively, they're doing really good, really good. They have made 10 errors as a team, so a little bit over 1 per game. That's not terrible, but that's obviously they're fine there. Pitching staff is doing really good too. 3.30 ERA. Now let's see if the numbers line up. 71 innings pitched, 58 hits given up, 26 earned runs. And again, 33 walks, so they're walking less than 2 or 1 per 2 innings. So they're basically, they're walking like 3 guys a game. Or a little bit over 3 guys a game, 4 guys a game. And 78 strikeouts in 71 innings. So they're missing bats. It's not a crazy amount of strikeouts, but like it's for where their walks are, it's a good point. And opponent batting average 227. So they're just playing all around good baseball right now. And if we look at their schedule, I hate some of these lines. I hate how some of these things. Let's look at their schedule and just see the. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So A&M, Corpus Christi, whatever. Tarleton, Omaha. They're number 1 in RPI right now. Yeah, their strength of schedule is great. I mean, they're playing a Big 12 schedule, so they're going to have a good schedule. But are they really number 1 in RPI right now? How are they number 1 in RPI? I mean, if you're undefeated, your RPI is going to be high. But like this, I mean, this isn't a very difficult schedule here right now. So like, obviously, you're not really going to know anything until Minnesota's good, and their schedule's pretty soft until Big 12 starts. Yeah, 8-0 is 8-0. That's why I'm sure their RPI is like pretty high. But I would be surprised. There's undefeated SEC schools. Like, I don't think their RPI can't be 1. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm actually curious. I want to look at Tennessee's. I want to look at the Tennessee stat line. I don't know why we haven't done this yet, but obviously they're balling as normal. All right, let's pull this up. You're right, Doug. I mean, anytime you're 8-0, that's great. But Tennessee's 8-0, so like their RPI can't be higher than Tennessee. Great start for this Levi Clark guy. Pretty solid. 9 hits and 15 at bats. 3 doubles and 3 home runs. Yikes, man. 6 walks to 3 strikeouts. All right, let's look at their team numbers. 356 as a team. 680 slugging. And break down the RPIs. Yeah, we can do that in a second. All right, so if Tennessee's offense, and again, we'll look at the schedule. Slugging 680. On base percentage of 519. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys hitting over 400. 3 home runs, 2 home runs, 3 home runs, 3 home runs, 2 home runs, 1 home run, 1 home run, 3 home runs. They have 21 home runs in 8 games. They're hitting about 3 home runs a game almost. I remember, I don't know if you guys remember this. I made a video on this Jay Abernathy kid. I think in the MLB draft workout. And I made the comment. I said, listen, I'm seeing his act because he was a shortstop in high school. And I'm seeing his actions. And don't get me wrong, I think he's talented, but I think he's going to go to center field. He can really run. He's got 5 stolen bases on the year. I said he's just going to go to center field. He's got a solid arm, but the actions at short are just not like if he was drafted by a major league team and gone to the Levi Clark Marietta boy, they would have given him a shot maybe to play short. But in college, you can't hope he develops, right? You need a really good defender at short. And immediately, what happened? What happened? He's playing center field for Tennessee, and he's balling, right? It's been great for him. Not hitting for a lot of power. And again, he started 4 games. These 3 guys have only started 4 games. I don't know what's gone on there, but they're all raking 4 games. They all have the best numbers. And let's look at the pitching stat. But let's look at why is Tennessee elite? Again, we'll look at their schedule, but it doesn't matter who you're playing in Division I. When you're slugging 680 and you have 77 walks in 300 and let's call it 320 plate appearances, you're walking just under a 25% rate as a team. You only have 48 strikeouts. They almost have double the walks as strikeouts, bravo to Josh Elander, because usually when you're hitting this many home runs and this many extra base hits, you're going to have swing and miss. These guys aren't swinging and missing. 519 on base percentage as a team. They've made 8 errors, so 1 error a game. Again, fine. Pitching staff. They have to be the number 1 team in the country. 1.89 ERA. 62 innings pitched, 32 hits. They're giving up a hit every other inning. Only 16 runs given up in 8 games. They are averaging giving up 2 runs a game. And they're scoring 14 runs a game. Now we all know they've played some softer competition, which is fine. And I mean some teams they just destroyed. Yeah, we're going to look at the schedule in a second. But again, Dusty, it's like you said, when you're 8-0, you're 8-0. When you're pitching to a 1.89, there's plenty of teams out there that are facing soft competition. They're not pitching to a 1.89 and OPSing 1,200 as a team. They have 99 strikeouts to 19 walks in 62 innings pitched. Frank Anderson, old school guy, probably, again, one of, if not the best pitching coaches in the country. Something about these old pitching coaches in college baseball, they're just really good. And I bet 5 years ago, they didn't know how to use an iPad. No offense. But now in baseball, it's well, can you look at the analytics and use the iPad and this and that? It's great. Tennessee, and again, they're getting the best arms. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of schools out there with really good arms. They're not walking 19 guys in 62 innings. Let's see how this shakes out this weekend. OK State, Rice, Arizona. Yeah, you're right. But still, they're this is what you expect Tennessee to do when they face soft competition, right? And that's what I'm saying with let's contrast this to A&M, right? A&M was preseason number 1. They're 5-2 right now. And again, look at the competition. It's Hofstra, UNC Asheville. Okay. Samford, not a bad mid-major. Samford's a solid mid-major. This is not a soft team. Solid mid-major. And it played them pretty close, right? 5-1, 7-3, 11-1 final game. North Alabama, not very good, but a close game. So Oklahoma State will be their first test this weekend. Arizona's good. Rice will be solid. Again, Rice is another, just consider that a solid mid-major program. We miss Anderson at Houston. Yeah, I mean Frank Anderson again, guys. Like if you look across college baseball, like and there's some notable exceptions, right? There's some notable exceptions, but it's like some of these the best pitching coaches are like these old school guys who are now incorporating the analytics side as well, but they haven't lost that that old school mentality and that old school knowledge, right? Kyle, do a breakdown of Alabama. Yes, sir. Let's do it. The Fighting Rob Vaughns. Of course, I exited out of it. Buck, regarding old school pitching coaches, my view on that is that college is still learning the mental strategy part of the game, where analytics is the final refinement more for pros. I think that's fair, Buck. I think the biggest thing, I think you're spot on with that. I also want to now I gotta bring up the other page. God. I also want to add, I think the here's the thing. All right. And I've talked to you guys about this a little bit in the past. We're not going to do that. That doesn't work. We're very good. We're going to do this. Hopefully you guys can see that fine. Might be a little bit small. Can you guys see that fine? Two things that never get talked about in regards to college pitching. One is the pitch calling. Just quite frankly, and Dusty knows this, a lot of pitching coaches in college are pitching strictly to a spreadsheet and a scouting report instead of watching the hitters and letting the hitters, again, you have to pitch to a scouting report in the first game of a series. But the hitters over the course of the first game and in the series at large will show you what they're struggling with, what they're hitting well. Not even close? Okay. Let me zoom in more. Let me take the chat down for a second so you guys can see it better. There you go. So pitch calling is key. And these old school guys really know how to call a game, right? Because for decades, they were calling games without a very good scouting report, without like the spreadsheet of all this data. So they learned how to watch the hitter. The best pitching coaches in calling a game, they're not watching the pitcher. They're watching the hitter. How does he react to a pitch? Is he way late on a fastball? Go there again. Is he on time with the fastball? Go to an off speed. Oh, did he just miss that off speed? Go back to the fastball, right? They know how to call the game based on what the hitter is showing them. So that's number one. Number two, that also never gets talked about, is pitchers tipping, right? This is the game within the game in college baseball, and every team is trying to do this. And the best pitching coaches are very good at spotting their own guys tipping in the fall and correcting it and minimizing it so it's very hard to pick in a game or on video, right? And I'll give you an example. Like when I did that at Georgia Tech, that was like my main job. And the one school I could not pick up tips on any of their pitchers was Vanderbilt, right? And so when you're looking at a team, if you can't pick up most teams, you can pick up stuff on like 70% of their guys in college. But credit Scott Brown, who's a very good pitching coach. Again, older guy, been around a long time, and his pitchers always seem to do really well. But let's look at some of this. From what I've seen so far, yes, very early. All you got to do is throw strikes, and you have a chance to beat anyone. 100%, right? Because they got to earn it. Coog, speaking of Alabama, my friend's kid is Zane Adams, left-handed pitcher. Nice. We'll look at how he's doing. No, we can't say. Oh yeah, you're right. I already fixed it. Calling a game is an art. Our travel head coach was both a catcher and a pitcher in college. Probably could have gone pro without injuries. And we always talk about what he calls and he sees stuff. I don't. Yeah. Again, like that's something that you have to be around the game for years to really see it. Like I talk with players about all the time and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Even some coaches, they're like, they wouldn't see tips or they wouldn't see hitters, kind of how they react to pitches. And I mean, again, like if you call the wrong pitch to the hitter, he's way more likely to put the ball in play and hit it hard. That's why you're exactly right, Buck. It's an art form because the scouting report tells you something, but if, at some point the hitter is going to make an adjustment. And what I see happen in college baseball is, man, pitching coaches now love to like triple up, quadruple up on off speed. And as soon as that hitter looks like he's on time with it and he's on playing with it, like you got to go somewhere else. You cannot throw that pitch again. All right, let's look at Alabama. So hitting 350 as a team through 9 games. 112 runs, so they're scoring, let's call it 11, 12 runs a game. 19 home runs, 18 doubles, one triple. They're slugging it right at 600, so elite level. Walking more than they strike out, 77 walks to 75 strikeouts, 24 hit by pitches. So they've got, on the year, 101 free passes in 9 games. They're getting, think about this, guys. They're averaging over 10 free passes a game. You can't lose. You can't lose here. You get 10 free passes before you even get any hits. You can't lose. 11 free. They're averaging like 11 or 12 free passes a game, on top of 108 hits. So they're averaging like 12 or 13 hits a game and 12 free passes a game. So they got 24 base runners, 25 base runners minimum per game. You're going to win. You can't lose almost. Talk through some indicators with reading a swing call. Well, you're looking for timing, right? You're looking, all right, on a fastball. Is he late on it? All right, well, how late is he? Was he just late? Was he way late? If he's way late, go back to it. Make him prove that he can catch up to it. With an off speed, you're looking for, one, is he on time with it? So is he way out front? Good indicator, you can go back. Is he on plane with it? So is he swinging way over top of it? Is he swinging way underneath of a fastball? So the key indicators that I look at for hitters is timing and is he on plane? Like an off-speed slider, is he swinging a foot over top of it? You can throw that again. Like he ain't seeing it. But if you see him on plane with it and just swing and miss, and his timing's on there, his barrel's missing right underneath it, like it's a good indicator. You throw that thing again, he ain't gonna miss it. So like if you're trying to look at hitters, and if they're what they're going to tell you is if he's way late on a fastball, he can't hit it right now. If he's way off plane and out front on a slider, you can throw it again. But the closer they get timing wise and on plane, you got to go somewhere else. Change it up, right? Throw a fastball 0-2, throw a fastball top of the zone to get a chase, and if he takes it, now you can try to go back. Right, but too often what I see is just like slider, 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 and that fifth one, the guy hits a double or a home run because it's like he kept getting better and better and got more on time and more on plane. In my opinion, the reason that people aren't learning to call a game is because they don't pitch off their fastball anymore. There's no measuring stick or relativity. We are throwing off speed or our third, fourth best pitch just because. Yeah, like an off speed is only an off speed in the sense that you're throwing a lot of fastballs, right? Think about it like this, if a changeup is not a changeup, if you're not throwing any fastballs, it's just the speed you're throwing. That's why, like, rule of thumb, like, first pitch changeups are usually not good, especially early in a game, because there's no speed differential there for a hitter to have to like react to. So if you're throwing nothing but off speed, if you're throwing way too much off speed, unless it's a real weapon of a pitch, like they're going to be more likely to hit it. The fastball sets the tone for your off speed pitches. They're not off speed pitches if you're throwing the vast majority of them over your fastball. If you're throwing a pitch just because you haven't in a while, that's bad news. Yeah. Like it's like with most pitchers most starting pitchers in college are 2-pitch guys with like a very distant third pitch. And so if you're a really good hitter, you figure that out really quickly and understand they're a 2-pitch guy. Like, yeah, he throws that changeup like 8% of the time, but it's like a show pitch. It's not a pitch he's going to get an out with. It's a pitch he's trying to throw just to throw it. So like good hitters will eliminate that pitch and be like, yeah, I'm not worried about it. I got to be careful the slider. I got to be ready for the fastball. And it's resulting in all those free passes. Baby Ruth doesn't play anymore. Throw a darn strike. All right, but let's get back into this. So obviously offensively, they're doing amazing. Alabama. They've made 12 errors in 9 games, so they're averaging a little bit over 1.25 errors per game. You want to see that down a little bit. Pitching wise, they're throwing to a 3.86, 77 innings pitched to 58 hits, 35 walks. So again, they're under just under one walk every 2 innings, 85 strikeouts, so they're missing bats. Again, it's not like an elite differential between the innings pitched and the 85 strikeouts, but it's good. An opponent batting average is 203. So the pitching staff's getting it done. Really, the only place that they're doing like not as great at is defensively, but they're still fine, right? Fielding 962 as a team, it's not terrible. So again, there's a reason why they're 9-0, and we look at their schedule. They faced Bradley early, easy competition, Middle Tennessee State, Alabama State, Coastal Carolina, NC State, Ohio State. So 3 really solid wins over NC State. Again, probably not as good as they were ranked when they've played them. Coastal Carolina's solid, going to be one of the better mid-majors this year. Ohio State, first year under head coach Justin Hare. Look for Ohio State in the next couple of years to really take a jump up. But 3 really solid wins in this kind of round robin, and then a win over Jacksonville State. Pretty big. So they'll face North Dakota State, Jacksonville State again, and then Troy, Presbyterian, and then they'll get into their SEC schedule March 14th. So they still got a couple weeks before they get into their SEC schedule. All right, let's bring the chat back on here. Panhandle Conference play starts next Friday. I have Northwest Florida winning, Gulf Coast second, and Chipola third. Chipola's pitching is very concerning. Yeah, but Chipola's really not playing very well right now. Shout out to Nico Buentello, one of the coaches in Northwest Florida, a good friend of mine. He used to be the assistant coach at Georgia State, doing a good job there. Jared M. was trying to write Babe, but it worked. Love the Sandlot. Yeah. Hey, we understood what you were saying. So, I mean, again, guys, like early in the year, teams are going to get off a slow start. Some teams are going to be playing really well. What you're looking for is like, okay, let's say your team is not playing as well as you thought. You're looking for indicators. Like, for example, Georgia Tech with 2 losses right now. You're looking at, all right, are they throwing strikes? Are they hitting extra base hits, hitting for a high enough average, scoring runs, right? That's what you're looking for, right? Because over the course of a 60-game season, you're gonna win a lot of games that way. If you're 8-0 right now, but you're walking like 4 or 5 guys a game as a pitching staff, once you get in conference play, those are going to hurt you a lot more. Free passes are going to kill you in conference play because the hitters are better. They're going to score more runs because of it. So there are indicators to see. They're not perfect, but those are the ones I like to look at as an indication of how a team's going to perform once they get into conference play. Northwest Florida is loaded. They hit the portal hard with D1 transfers. Yeah, when I talked to Nico, it was either this fall or right at the end of the summer. He basically said, like, in like August and at the end of July, when I made that video about where you're about to see a bunch of D1 kids not only get decommitted but cut at the end of the fall with the roster size decrease in Division I. He told me, he goes, we have money, but we're waiting for these D1 kickbacks. We're waiting for these kids that get decommitted. We're waiting for these kids to get cut. So like Northwest Florida had a lot of money to spend, but they're like, we're not going to do it. We're not going to go after any high school guys. We're getting these D1 kickbacks. So you're right. Like they hit the portal hard. They got a lot of those D1 guys. All right, let's I think, let's do a couple more of these little kind of deep dives into some of these programs. Like, let's look at Florida State. Obviously, off to a really good year, start of the year so far. Let's see what they're looking like as far as, obviously they have one of if not the best pitchers in college, the best pitcher in college baseball, Jamie Arnold. All right, let's pull this up. All right. So as a team, they're hitting 337. Not quite driving the ball as much as like Alabama and Tennessee and some of these other schools, but hitting 337, 11 home runs as a team, so not bad. decent amount of extra base hits, 41 walks on the year to 67 strikeouts. So they are swinging and missing a decent amount. 41 walks in 300 and let's call it 330 plate appearances. They're a little bit over 10%. Again, that walk rate is fine. It's nothing crazy. Strikeout rate is not very high. Again, it's fine. On base percentage, again, for your batting average is a little bit low, but as long as you're hitting at this clip, your on base percentage doesn't need to be quite as high. They do have 18 stolen bases on the year, so they are doing a good job of running and kind of taking advantage of opportunities on the base paths. Defensively, they've only made 6 errors in 8 games, so they're defending at a very high level. Pitching wise, again, nothing, no surprise here. Throwing to a 196. Offensively, they've scored 78 runs in 8 games, so they're right at 10 runs a game, which is really good. Again, like that number will go. So what you're looking at is like, all right, if you're scoring like 14 runs, 15 runs a game, like Tennessee is, and like Alabama is scoring 12 or 13 runs a game right now, that number is going to go down once you get in conference play. So what you have to understand is like, okay, if you're scoring like 10 runs a game right now, that's going to go down maybe a couple runs. So you may be an 8-run team a game in ACC play. But again, if you're pitching at this high level, 69 innings pitched, 47 hits, 15 earned runs. So they're giving up less than 2 runs per game, right? Less than 2 runs per game. 28 walks and let's call it 70 innings pitched. So walk rate is phenomenal for them. Like they're not walking anybody, and they've got 91 strikeouts in 69 innings pitched. So they're striking out a bunch of guys. They're not walking anybody, and they've only given up 14 extra base hits on the year. So basically a little bit more than 1.5 extra base hits per game, right? An opponent batting average is 188. You ain't gonna lose any games if those numbers hold. Let's look at their schedule and just who they've played so far. So James Madison, USF, really good mid-major. Penn, nothing crazy there. Jacksonville, solid mid-major. And now they'll play Georgetown today. And then they go Georgetown, and then they play North Florida, and then they get into our Bethune-Cookman, and then they get so they're starting. All right, so they don't start ACC play for a couple more weeks and open up at Boston College. Yeah, they haven't played anybody right now. I mean, they played USF, right? They've played USF. Like Jacksonville, again, include that in a solid mid-major program, but their only good teams they've played are the mid-major midweek games. Do Tulane. All right, let's go Tulane. Rice had pulled close with Mississippi State, but just gave up 2 more, and now down 6-3 with Mississippi State still batting. All right, let's pull up the numbers for Tulane. And again, like if this is the indicator, what you're looking for is offensively, if you've played really bad competition, those offensive numbers for Florida State, like you're going to expect those to drop, right? So again, like you're not going to be scoring 10 runs a game. If you're scoring 10 runs a game against pretty bad competition, those numbers are probably going to go, especially if you're swinging and missing and striking out the way they are, like that's going to go up as well. So your offensive production is going to go down. But looking at Tulane, let me take the chat down away because I think this is going to be tough to see again. As a team, they're hitting 308, which is fine. One thing that's scary, 5 home runs in 8 games. That's not good, but they have 25 doubles and 4 triples. So they're not hitting the ball at the ballpark, but they're hitting a bunch of extra base hits. 60 walks on the year to 59 strikeouts. That's really solid. Obviously, 16 hit by pitches as well, so a lot more free passes than strikeouts. only 6 stolen bases. So they're not doing a lot on the base paths, but a lot of doubles, right? So they're going to have a lot of run scoring opportunities. They've scored 43 runs in 8 games, so they're averaging like 5 runs a game. That's pretty tough, right? At 7-1, you're scoring 5 runs a game. Like they've got to be really pitching. 4.88 ERA, but let's look at some of the other numbers. 72 innings pitched, 62 hits, 37 walks. Now, here's the number, boys. This is how, again, their ERA is kind of high, but why are they winning games? 100 strikeouts in 72 innings pitched. So they're missing a lot of bats, right? Walk rate is right at 1 every 2 innings. So that's fine. Way more strikeouts than walks. Opponent batting average is 227. So the pitching staff, even though the ERA you're looking at and you're like, it's kind of, it's not where you think, they're missing a lot of bats. The pitching staff's not walking a lot of guys, and they're missing a lot of bats. Now let's go look at the defense. They have made 10 errors in 8 games, so they're fielding at a decent level, not beating themselves on defense. And let's look at their schedule. Man, is every team in the country playing Omaha? Like, I don't know. I feel like I've seen Omaha's got to have played like 15 games now. Omaha, New Orleans, Southeast Louisiana, LMU, Nichols. They'll be playing in Pepperdine today. Playing at Pepperdine. Good friend of mine, Tyler Latore, just got the head coaching job there. Long Beach State, so they'll stay in California to play on Monday at Long Beach. North Dakota State, and then they'll open up conference play in a couple weeks. All right, so let's go back to the live scores here. Rice did put 3 runs on the board, like was it Buck said, but gave it right back. They got 2 outs though right now. Dusty, if you're still here, I want to get what is your take on Georgia Tech's season outlook? Where do you think they end up with what you've seen so far? Man, that frosted key lime just hits different. Did you see the game? Is Dusty a commentator for Georgia Tech? Not today. Not today. He's not doing it today, but he has called like most of their games that have been at home so far this year. Did you see the game between OSU and Alabama? They made 10-run comeback a couple days ago. Yeah, that was crazy. And again, that's like a good sign. If you're Alabama, your team's got serious dog in them, like serious fight. Diving catch by the right center fielder, or else the game opens up. Nice. How you know most of these guys? Old teammates. Dusty is a teammate of mine. We were in the same recruiting class at Georgia Tech. Both played pro ball for a long time. But no one else in here I know. Dusty, need to see how they stack against other ACC teams, and I think we will quickly know. As of right now, middle of the ACC and make a regional. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is this, like, It depends on where you're at in the middle of the ACC. If you're like at the front end of the middle, you have a chance of hosting a regional, right? Even if you're at the back end of the middle, you're going to be in a regional, but you're not going to be hosting. Virginia Tech 7-2 over Indiana State in the seventh. Yeah, Buck. Come on, we're old pals at this point. Yeah, we know each other virtually. We've really gotten close and developed a certain kinship. Man, all eyes on that Florida Miami series tonight, though, and Clemson South Carolina. Those are going to be some banger games. Dusty, you think Georgia Tech needs to sweep this weekend? Michigan State being 0-7. Michigan State pitching is not looking good. Or sorry, not Michigan State, Western Michigan. Florida versus Miami is going to be great. We need to make sure Canes is in comms with us. Yeah, Canes is going to be DMing me probably every inning. Got to get game one tonight. I think Miami, and this is kind of it's kind of cliche, but I think like if Miami's able to keep the game close tonight, like they can pull it out. If it turns into a slugfest, I think Florida's just going to win, right? I think Florida's offense is better, so if it gets into a slugfest and you got to go to your bullpen early, Florida's going to come out on top. I think it's got to be 2 out of 3 against Western Michigan, then on to Virginia Tech. That is going to be the test. Do you think, Dusty, do you think we see any changes in the starting rotation in the next couple weeks? I finally watched the recap of UF Stetson game. I guess they denied the protest. UF has some big dudes, but strike out a lot. Sorry, Canes had some big hits in that game. Yeah. I mean, Buck, like, to me, it's just like, I don't know how, like, I want to know why, how was that protest denied? You know what I mean? Like, his foot was definitively on the safety base. By the way, the rule on the safety base is that the runner just has to touch a portion of the orange bag. Yeah, so why was he called out? That's what I'm, because like there is a still shot picture of his foot, the vast majority of it being on the safety base, but somehow, and he was called safe. Like, how did the replay team overturn the call? That's what I don't get. How did the replay team overturn the call? Like, he definitely touched the safety base. So like the whole thing just like doesn't make sense to me at all. It's like it was very clear. He was called safe. So there's got to be indisputable evidence that he did not touch the safety base. Not only was there not indisputable evidence, there was 100% evidence he did touch the safety base, but he was still called out. And then they protest it and it gets denied. I make it make sense. Talk to me like I'm 5 years old. Like how does that get overturned? One, and then how, when you protest the game, does it not get overturned? That's what I don't get. Right? Like the NCAA needs to do a press conference explaining and defending why they overturned the game or overturned the protest and overturned the call on the field. And that's one of those things as a college coach, you're just like sitting there like, how is this even possible? Same game. I saw another play where the safety can cause injury, dropped third in foul territory. Catcher calls outside, and the first baseman is in foul territory for the throw that, but has to step on the white bag. Yeah, like that's what I'm saying, Buck. We were talking about this yesterday. I think you were in the chat, and that's what I was saying. I'm like, listen, you may prevent like the pitcher covering on a bunt or a ground ball to the first baseman. Like you may prevent the pitcher from getting like his foot stepped on or whatever, but it's going to create a whole another issue, a host of issues where the throw takes the first baseman into foul territory, or the play like you described, and the first baseman's going to like step on the safety bag and not remember it's there, and then he like sprains his ankle or even worse. So I think it's one of those. It's not really a solution. You're basically just saying we don't want the pitcher to get stepped on certain plays, but like the first baseman can. Yeah, I mean, if he gets hurt, we don't care. It's really just like a trade off. You're not really making the game any safer. You're making it more safe for like the pitcher on certain plays, but less safe for the first baseman on certain plays. And again, you're right. Like a called third or swinging ball in the dirt that goes into foul territory, like the first baseman's got to have his foot on the regular base, but he's still got to stretch over it. Like it's just make both bases playable for both people. I don't understand. Safety bag has to go. Strange decision. Those are only for little league and old men beer leagues. Yeah, and it was like the change. It basically was put into the rules like a couple weeks before the season starts. So you didn't even give teams like a whole fall to adjust to it and game plan around it and kind of reteach fundamentals on certain plays. So it's just like, I don't know. I mean, like it's like the NCAA is like, hey, we need everybody. We need to vote and take like a long time on certain changes. And they're like, oh yeah, safety bag, put it in 2 weeks before the season starts. What are your thoughts on the Yankee facial hair change? Don't like it, hate it. I think like the Yankees are they're a pillar of Major League Baseball. They're like the pillar of Major League Baseball. They're the organization. And the fact that they had a standard and anybody who played there, didn't matter how big you were, you needed to meet that standard. That was like, again, this is what's being lost in baseball these days is like, it ain't about you. It's about the team. And what the Yankees standard for like their dress and their facial hair and their hair in general was like basically it was like anyone that comes here has to show that they're willing to sacrifice maybe like their personal style to be a part of this team. And now we're just like, nope, let it happen. And like I saw Jazz Chisholm was taking like live ABs in a basketball jersey in spring training. I'm just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Right? Like Alex Rodriguez went to play for the Yankees. He had to listen to the rules. So many dudes went to play for the Yankees and had to shave their beards. And again, like a just sacrifice to meet the standard of the Yankees. Yeah, you're right, Buck. I wouldn't have had an issue playing for the Yankees, that's for sure. I would have been like, oh man, I got to shave. Darn. Man, that's going to be tough for me. That's a real big part of who I am. But again, it's just like, again, it was like it immediately set the standard that you're not above the team in the organization. And I like things like that because that does build your team. It shows that if you're willing to play there, you're willing to make a sacrifice for the team, right? That's why, Augie Garrido at Texas, when you listen to him talk about the sacrifice bunt, he's like, you guys don't get it. It's not about the sacrifice bunt really is not about, oh, we need to move the runner. It's about, is that player willing to sacrifice his at bat and sacrifice the chance at the glory to help the team win? Right? And if you have 9 guys in a lineup who are willing to do that, right, you got a strong team. You got a cohesive team. Anybody in the lineup is willing to do that to put the team in a better chance to win, to put the team ahead of themselves, right? That was Augie Garrido's philosophy on it. He's like, yeah, I like to sacrifice bunt, but the reason I like to do it isn't because of what you think. It's because it makes it, this is the standard. You have to be willing to sacrifice yourself for the team. And if you're going to play for us and play for one of the best programs in the country, you're not above the team. And now in baseball, you have a bunch of guys, again, like this is the issue. Like, I see people frustrated all the time on Twitter in season because they're like, well, we have the winning run on third with 1 out in the 9th. Why aren't we bunting? It's because no one knows how to bunt anymore. No one sacrifice bunts anymore. They don't do it in high school. They don't do it in college. They don't do it in travel ball. That's for damn sure. And so what are you gonna make a guy bunt in a squeeze situation when he hadn't bunted once the whole year? That's a bad play. You can't. It's the most obvious play in the league. It's the most obvious play. You're going to win the game if you bunt it right. But they can't do it because the kids don't bunt anymore. They bunt off a coach, like BP when a coach throwing like twice in BP. That's not enough. That's not enough. Yeah, and guys are throwing bullpens with shorts on. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, if you're doing a workout and whatever, you're in shorts, that's fine. But, like, there's no standard in Major League Baseball now. These guys dress like clowns. You know, again, like, you're taking live BP for the Yankees, and you're wearing a basketball jersey, dude. Like, have some respect for the organization and the players that came before you, and the numerous Hall of Famers that were willing to sacrifice and meet the standard of the team. But now it's up. And again, you know why they did that? They did that because, well, players don't want to come here because they don't want to have to shave their beard. Like, can you imagine that? They don't want to get paid $25 million a year because they have to shave their beard. And they can't wear certain styles and stuff. And they can't wear like the lime green arm sleeve. And I mean, it's just like, hashtag Kyle old school rant. Yeah, you can tell my dad's an old GM from 30 years ago. If you ask an 11-year-old kid to bunt, their parents will be all over you. Yeah, and again, it's like you need to know how to bunt because you may come up in the College World Series in the final game with a runner on third and less than 2 outs, and if you squeeze play, you win. And you don't know how to do it. You can't do it. Like, you guys just watch college games. When these kids get asked to bunt, they foul it off, they pop it up, like they bunt it right back to the pitcher. They have no idea how to bunt. No one has any idea how to bunt anymore. That was something that every player, when I came up through high school and college, everyone knew how to bunt. You could ask Daniel Palka to bunt, who was third in the country in home runs his junior year at Georgia Tech. He could get the bunt down. He could, because we all came up learning to do that. It's a skill that you need to know because there is a time in the game when the game is on the line or in the 8th inning and you're down by 1 with a runner on third and 1 out. Just safety squeeze, get him in. Suicide squeeze, get him in. Marcus Stroman, it was Marcus Stroman in shorts. Yeah, well, I mean, Stroman doesn't have the greatest reputation of being a good team guy. Obviously, last year, what happened in the playoffs where he's refusing to throw out of the bullpen, like didn't get put on the playoff roster. Like, there's reasons why that happened. All right, and that's well known in the game is that he is, he may be a nice guy on the surface, but like in a locker room, you're like he's one of the guys your team's just like, God, this guy. I've also noticed that there are lots of errors in college games I've been watching. Yeah, because defenders in general are a lot worse, even in years past. Like college baseball defense has always been, again, like I've said this a lot, Graham, like the defensive level of like double A in the minor leagues is astronomically better than in college baseball. So there's always been a gap. But the issue is that these kids, and I've made videos about this, these kids all get told, well, hey man, if you can hit, they'll find a spot for you. And and they have like a travel coach. Again, nothing against travel coaches, but they have a travel coach who really doesn't know the real meaning of that kind of euphemism, which is as long as you're an average defender or better and you can hit, they'll find a spot for you. So these kids don't work on their defense. And a lot of these guys are like, yeah, I'm a good shortstop. And I watch them play and I'm like, dude, you couldn't play shortstop on my high school team, let alone in a Division I program. Right. And it's so easy to see the good defenders in high school now. You see a good shortstop, you're like, holy cow, it looks like a big leaguer. I mean, that's how different it is. As a lefty or a righty, it's a slump buster. Yeah, man. I mean, I made a living off button for a base hit. I made a living off of it. And again, like it wasn't as bad as it is now. Like everyone knew how to bunt. And that's why in the major leagues, they still are making guys bunt at least like kind of in practice and like in BP rounds and maybe inside against off a machine. But in college, man, you don't see a lot of programs doing that. You don't see a lot of programs saying, hey, you got like, when I tell high school kids this, they're like, holy cow. Cause I've been working with guys on our team to like base hit bunt more. Cause in high school, it's just a free hit. I said, man, when I was in high school, I did 50 to 100 drag bunt, 50 to 100 push bunt base hit every day, almost every day. I had a batting cage in my backyard my dad built with a net and a machine. And we would just go back there and bunt 50, and then start swinging. So in the game, it was like riding a bike. It was just like, oh, bunt right there, base hit. It wasn't like I just like was this elite genetic bunter that learned how to do it. No, I grinded it. I worked on it every single day. And when you put that much work in over the course of like 7 or 8 years, you almost don't even really need to work that hard at it anymore because it is like riding a bike. Like I got in the cage having not done it for 6 years off a machine. I'm like, this is what it needs. This is what you guys want it to look like. And it was just like, boom, deadened off base hit bunt, boom. Like it's like riding a bike. Even if you know how to bunt, there's no guarantee that it'll be successful. Explain that to me. So let's just say your average high school player, third baseman's playing 10 feet behind the base. There's no guarantee that that's successful. Right? I think you're, again, Freddie, no offense, but I think you're not thinking of this correctly. You're thinking about, well, even if you bunt it down, you don't know if you might bunt it too hard. You might bunt it too soft. The catcher can pick it. No, the only reason you bunt it too hard or you bunt it too soft is because you haven't trained. I could get up there in like 25 out of 26 attempts, deaden it within 3 feet of the line every single time. You can ask Dusty Isaacs, who's in this chat. He probably never saw a guy that could base hit bunt like me. That's fine. That's what scouts told me. And it's because I literally worked on it every single day. And it was a weapon. I could do it whenever I wanted. They would play me in college and in pro ball. And again, you can ask any of my former teammates or Dusty about this. They would play me like 15 feet in front of third base, and I would still base hit bunt and get hits. And now I got this massive hole on the left side that I can just hit a decent ground ball a step or two to the third baseman's right or left, and it's a base hit too. Right? Like your statement is operating under the assumption that like when you bunt, it's kind of like random. And it's only a random event when you bunt when you're not very good at it. When you're elite at it, like if you're an elite strike thrower, you throw strikes because you're an elite strike thrower. It's not because like, oh, he just happens to throw strikes. If you're an elite bunter, which anyone can be, you will bunt the ball in the right spot at the right speed the vast majority of times. I think I hit like 900 in professional baseball on base hit bunt attempts. 900. So 9 times out of 10, I was safe, and that was with first baseman and third baseman playing me 15 to 20 feet in on the grass. So again, it's like it's if you actually really work at it, like they're not going to be able to throw you out. That's actually the reason why base hit bunting was always taught in the old days, is because it's indefensible. You can't defend it. If you can run well enough and you're very good at it, like, it can't be defended. Especially the drag bunt for a lefty to the first base side. Like, if you know how to get it in that Bermuda Triangle where the first baseman, the pitcher, and the second baseman all go after it, I knew if the first baseman went after it 1 or 2 steps, I was safe. And I didn't even really drag bunt that much in college because the third base was just so free for me. I never felt like I needed a drag bunt. And in pro ball, when third baseman really started playing me way up in, I could just drag bunt. And I used it a lot more in pro ball. But that's the reaction I get when I tell guys to bunt. They're like, "Well, I mean, it like the reaction I get, and I get it because this would go through my head as well. Every once in a while, you'd like foul a bunt off, and it was like right down the middle, and you're like, God, I would have crushed that pitch. And it's like, no, you wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have. You're not. There's no other skill where you hit like 800 plus on base hit bunt. Mississippi hitter just crushed a home run at Minute Maid deep. Let's check back in on that score. Let's check back in on the score. Top 763. Yeah, I help coach a high school in Atlanta. One of the guys I actually played with at Georgia Tech was a junior my freshman year. Our Friday ace, he's the head coach there. He texted me 3 or 4 months ago about helping coach the hitters and the outfielders and like base running, and so I'm doing that. Or helping him out. Like, I'm not like a official school employee or anything. I'm a community coach. I get paid like a stipend to do it. But yeah, it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. It's really, honestly, it's been really good for me because when you've been around the college game and the professional game so long, you forget you cannot coach a high school player the same you coach a college player, the same you coach a professional player. A professional player is going to make adjustments almost instantly. Like when you tell them, hey, try this or do this, they're able to make that adjustment very quickly. A college player, again, maybe not as quick, but still, like, they're just a much better overall player, understand their body better. Like, they're able to make an adjustment quicker. A high school kid, like, you can tell them, hey, do this, and it's going to take like 20 swings for them to do it once. Might go this weekend and take the kiddos to the Astros College Classic. That should be fun, Coog. Freddie, you're right. That makes sense. Yeah, man. I mean, it's like any skill, right? At some point, you become a master at it, and a master doesn't mess up. Messes up at a very, 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 very small percentage of the time. And you talk to any scout in the state of Georgia, hey, how good of a bunter was Kyle Wren? They'll say probably the best I've seen in decades. I had a lot of them comp me to, like, they're like, yeah, I mean, as far as base hit bunter, he's like Brett Butler, or another guy another player who had a lot of base hit bunts. Another Mississippi State home run. Yeah, they're kind of running away with this one now. And again, I mean, I think that was pretty much everybody thought that was what, expected that to happen. Piling it on now, yeah. And again, Rice is doing this. Like, this is what you see a lot of mid majors doing. Is what a lot of mid majors are doing is they're saying, you know what, before conference play, one sec, I'll answer that question in a second, Freddie. Before conference play, a lot of mid majors are what they're doing is they're scheduling a really tough pre-conference schedule, and the reasoning for that is, one, you're facing better competition than you're going to see in conference. So you're preparing your team by showing them really tough competition, and then they get into conference and it's like, oh, this ain't as bad as it was. And secondly, if you really perform well with mid-majors, with the vast majority of mid-majors needing to win their conference championship to make it in the NCAA tournament, if you do really well pre-conference against like some top 25 teams and all of a sudden your RPI gets boosted pretty high, now, if you do really well in conference, but you don't win the championship, you may have a chance at an at-large bid. So that's what like teams like Rice are doing. Georgia State was doing that for a long time. Like, it's just, hey, let's go all in and face some really good ACC, SEC opponents, and then or Big 12 or whatever. And then, if we do really well, we got a chance of being at large. And if we don't do well, at least, we faced really tough competition. We've prepared our team for conference play. Freddie, who would you recommend to watch on how to bunt properly? Man, that's a good question. Again, like, maybe I should make a video on it. I don't know. Let me just do like a quick Google search. Is there a how to base hit bunt video on YouTube? Like, the problem is the problem on YouTube is you have a lot of these guys who like never played at a high level or barely did. Like, what you'll have is a guy who's like, yeah, I played pro ball, and like, yeah, he did, but he played in like the Gulf Coast League, which is where like the 16-year-old Latins are, and like the fresh out of high school draft picks go, that most of them never leave the Gulf Coast League, which is like, again, it's like semi-pro baseball, to be honest. I mean, it's just like guys have no idea where they're throwing it. Like, that's where the majority of kids' careers die. So if they're like, well, yeah, I played pro ball and I played like 1 year in the Gulf Coast League, they played pro ball, but they really don't have a very good experience of what pro ball is about. And so you have a lot of these coaches on YouTube that are making like how to base hit bunt, and you're watching it and you're like, well, let's pull this one up. I can't wait to see this video. Let's pull this up and just see what we got here.
What's going on, guys? In this video, we're going to talk about how to bunt for a base hit. Going to talk about the bunting technique and also how to bunt to move guys over and use the bunt.
Funny thing, this is one of my former teammates, Nick Shaw, played up to Double-A with the Brewers. Really good defender, solid hitter. He actually could base hit bunt pretty well. Not on my level, but so this should be
as part of your strategy. But if you can bunt for a base hit and use your speed to get on first, that's a huge asset to have in your toolbox, right? I'm Coach Matt and You Go Pro Baseball. This is Nick Shaw,
I told you,
former Brewers middle infielder and creator of the Baseball Box. It's a monthly subscription box filled with cool baseball stuff delivered to your doorstep every single month. If you're interested in checking that out, it's at thebaseballbox.com.
Man,
now,
Nick,
tell us, you were a leadoff guy, you had some speed. How did you use the bunt to not only move guys over, but get on base, and what was your technique? Break it down for us.
So I was a quicker guy, all right, and I liked getting hits. Now, if you're either one of those two things, you might want to pay attention a little bit. It's not just about being able to put the bunt down. It's about the threat of you bunting and what it does to your infielders. Now, I was a guy who liked to show it a lot. I was a lefty, so it's made it sell a little bit more, but you can do it from the right side as well. I like to show it a lot just to get the infield to react. And it got to the point where every time I would come up to the plate, I now have my third baseman even with third base or even in front, and I have my first baseman even with the base or even on the grass. Now, what does that do, you might ask? Well, now all I have to do is hit a hard ground ball, and that hole, 6 hole is pretty open, I opened up the line a little bit, and I've opened up the 4-hole and this line a bit just by bringing them in and giving them less range, all right? On top of that, I would show the bunt to the pole side, so the first base side, to bring the second baseman in a little bit even more, all right? Because that's where I would try to bunt if I was going to the first base side. I would go right at the second baseman. So it got to the point, like I said, where I would step up. This guy would be in, first baseman.
Coog, like I'm substantially better bunter. He was good though. Like, don't get me wrong, but
in. The second baseman is even cheating a little bit in, which opens up a lot of the field for more hits. All right.
This is Nick. I didn't play with him at this point.
Why does the
I played with him in Double A after
why
I got
does
traded
actually
to
putting
Milwaukee.
it down benefit me, and how do I do it? If I'm struggling, which every hitter struggles, you could be Albert Pujols in his prime and you can go 0 for 40. You're gonna struggle. But if I find a way to get out of that slump without having to fine tune my mechanics and timing and time a ball up perfectly and square it up perfectly, if I can just lay a bunt down and break my slump.
Really good card player though. Really good card player, I'll say that.
A lot of times the slump is
really
just
good card
mental.
player.
It's getting that first or second hit to break you out. So if I can get the bunting technique down and put down a great bunt for a base hit and get me out of a slump, it's a great thing.
Good rule of thumb, and this is taking too long, so I'll do something for you right here, Freddie. So I have a bat right here, okay? This is one of my old bats. See the name right there, Kyle Wren, 33.5, 32, R58, Old Hickory. This is my favorite model. I don't have very big hands, so I like to have a thinner handle. So I felt like I had control of the handle of the bat. Like too thick of a handle, I felt like, man, can't really whip this thing through the zone. Good rule of thumb. If I'm trying to deaden the ball, this hand's got to be higher up on the bat. If I'm bunting to third base, I want to deaden it. I'm like right here. Like I'm way up here, right? Way up here. Obviously hiding my fingers. Sometimes I would do this. Sometimes I do this. It doesn't really matter. You can do either. Again, like you just got to be careful. But I'm doing this right here, right? Super chat. Freddie, thanks for the super chat, man. Appreciate it, dude. I'm deadening it. I need to be higher up on the barrel because this is going to allow me to absorb that vibration from the barrel that creates that bounce. Third base, I'm aiming, again, a good rule of thumb is point my knob to third. If I'm a lefty hitter, so if you're righty, just reverse this. If I'm trying to bunt to third, my knob needs to be pointing towards first base, right? That's my angle. My angle is my knob's facing first, so my barrel is facing down the third base line. And I'm trying to bunt this right around here, right? I don't want to bunt on the sweet spot. That's going to bounce it too hard. I want to bunt it somewhere around this area near the end of the bat. It's going to deaden it. And now I'm just catching the ball with my bat. I don't want to push if I'm going to third. I want to just kind of absorb it, barely. I don't want to go like this, but I'm trying to absorb that like you would catching a baseball, right? You're just absorbing the ball around this area. Now, if I'm going to first base, it's the opposite. I'm pointing my barrel at third base so that I'm aimed towards first, right? Now, what Nick was talking about in the video is like in a drag bunt, you really want to aim it towards the second baseman so that the first baseman will crash on it. Second baseman will take a step towards it. The pitcher tries to go after it. If all three of them are going after it, no one's covering first, right? And it, like if the first baseman takes a couple steps towards it, he's not going to get back in time. Now, with a drag bunt or if you're a righty, a push bunt towards first base, everyone kind of calls it different things, but like if you're bunting it towards first base, there's two things you can do. You can either try to deaden it down the line, which is not as good. And here's the reason, because the catcher is closer to first. So to third base, the catcher is running away from first and has to make a longer throw. To first base, the catcher is getting closer to first as he's going after the ball, right? So if you deaden it to first, you got to have some serious speed. And then still, it's not as good of a bunt. It doesn't mean it can't be effective, but I never really tried to do that. I was always trying to hit this more on the barrel, so I'm going to be lower on the bat because I want this thing to bounce off the bat. And I'm trying to get it past the pitcher's mound in the grass towards second base, right? If I can get it in the grass towards second base, kind of even with first, a little bit past the pitcher's mound, I'm in a really good spot. So again, if you're trying to bunt it harder, lower on the bat with this, lower on the bat. You're not going to absorb the vibration and the shock as much. It's going to bounce more. If you're trying to deaden the bat or deaden the ball, way higher up on the barrel, way higher up, right? And you got to be careful. Like, again, practice this. But that's how I would do it. I made a video about how guys are swinging. The bats are so light now. Like, again, this is a 33 and a half. I wasn't a big guy, 5'10", 175, 80 pounds really. And I swung a 33 and a half, 32 ounce bat. So drop 1.5. It's a denser wood. So when I hit it on the barrel, it's going to go better. It's denser, but it's the same weight. So it's harder wood. It's going to create more bounce. So, and again, what I noticed is if you don't going up in length, because the center, like the sweet spot of the bat's further away from you, you're going to feel that. It's going to feel heavier. It's going to feel longer, right? So it's going to feel heavier. You just go up in ounces. And again, like with wood bats, I know most high school kids don't really need this, but you go up in ounces, but not in length, you really don't feel the weight nearly as much. So that's what I did. You think bunting has gone to the wayside because of the increase of pitching velocity? No. If anything, it should be, guys should do it more, right? Like velocity, I didn't care how hard a guy threw. It wasn't like, oh, this guy throws 90. I mean, again, like, listen, when I say this to people don't get it, but in AA, like, this is the mindset you have in AA. You look at, okay, this is a guy starting today. You get a scouting report. Oh, he's 94, 96. You're like, okay. You don't even think about it. Like 94, 96. And this is what I try to tell guys. And they're like, guys, velocity's so high now. Guys just can't hit. And I'm like, you understand in AA and in AAA, when you see that the starter's throwing 94, 96, you're not like, holy cow. You're just like, okay. Like, it's not, it doesn't surprise you. And it's not like, oh crap, another guy throwing 94, 96. It's just like, that's normal. And then the bullpen guys are all throwing upper 90s to 100. Like that, again, that's a general statement. That doesn't mean everybody did that. But general rule of thumb, if you ask any hitter in professional baseball, would you rather face the guy throwing 95, 96, four seam, or would you rather face the guy that throws like low 90s with like 5 pitches? They'll take the 94, 96 guy every time. So velocity, no, it's not because of velocity. It's because, one, players don't think there's any value in it. They don't understand that the college game, they could add 100 points in their batting average from it. In the high school game, they could add 100. I told guys, I said, listen, in 30 games, 7-inning games, let's say you got 100 at bats this year and you had 10 base hit bunts. That's 100 extra points on your batting average. Now, let's say in 10 of those at bats, you would have got 2 hits. All right, that's still 80 points on your batting average, right? So it's a massive increase on your batting average. And the more times you have guys on base, the more likely your team is to score. You're going to help your team win. I always played, almost every team I played on was a winning team throughout my whole career. Low A, high A, double A, triple A. Like I just played on a lot of winning teams. And I'd like to think I had something to do with that, but I was a leadoff hitter my whole career, virtually my whole career. Every once in a while I'd get a 2-hole spot or maybe like a 6 or a 7-hole or something. But I'd say probably 95% of my at-bats in professional baseball were out of the leadoff spot. I knew what my role was. I knew I was really good at it. And base hit bunting was a part of that. Cause like Nick said in the video, it wasn't just about the hits that the bunts themselves get me. It was the fact that every team knew when I stepped up to the plate, I would do it with 1 strike. I would do it with no strikes. I would do it in a 3-1 count. I would do it in a 2-0 count. Sometimes I would be in a 3-1 count or a 2-0 count, and the infielders would back up. So like, oh, he ain't bunting. He's in a really good count. I'm like, thank you, bunt. So it opened up holes in the infield. It made the infield. It made it. And this again, I think this is where analytics has gone wrong. Because I think I was very undervalued because I hit the ball on the ground at a higher rate than like most of the analytics guys would like. But listen, if the third baseman's playing 15 feet in front of the base and the first baseman's playing 10 feet in front of the base, there's more ground balls that are hits than for the average player, right? So when I talk about analytics and how they don't take everything into account and they can make anyone look bad and anyone look good, I can promise you No analytics guy in the major leagues thinks like that. They don't think, oh, well, the infielders are in, so the hit probability on a ground ball for Kyle over the average player is higher because he's got way more room in the infield, because that third baseman has to play on the line, right? Really close to third base and 20 feet in. I'm not kidding you guys. I had guys that were playing, like Nick says, the guys would play him on the grass, on the edge of the grass. I had guys that would play me 10 feet in front of the grass, like 65 feet away. So I would do the old Rafael Furcal. I'd square around and then I'd pull back and slash. Like that, I just had so many weapons in my arsenal to make the ground ball a more likely hit for me. I'm a leadoff hitter too. What did you think about taking first pitch of the game? Here's a great rule of thumb for you, Graham. And in high school, it's different, right? But like let's just like, for example, in pro ball, you're playing, and in college, you're playing like a 3-game series typically. And so my dad, who was, worked in Major League Baseball my whole life, played professionally and everything. He always told me, one of those 3 games, if you get a really good pitch to hit, like don't miss it, crush it. Because you don't want the starting pitchers, and you don't want word getting around that, hey, Graham, he takes first pitch of the game every time. Now, you don't want to be swinging first pitch all the time either, right? That's why, like, hey, 1 every 3 games, 1 every 4 games, you get a really good pitch, like you want to ambush it. And the reality is that sometimes you'll get a cookie, and sometimes you'll get like a spotted corner pitch that you wouldn't swing at anyway, or sometimes you'll get an auto take out of the hand, right? But you always want to be ready. And once you do that enough, teams know, okay, we can't just like throw him a BP fastball first pitch because he's taken every time. So I was very patient at the plate, but I knew every strength can be turned into a weakness. And at some point in my career, my dad said, listen, like every team knows you're just taking the first pitch. So now they're just getting a free strike on you, right? You have to scare them out of the zone every once in a while. So I think like every couple games, like you need to be, and again, in high school, you're going to get more easy pitches to hit than anywhere else. So if you get a really good pitch to hit, like just be ready to hit it. And what I always say like that is like, I'm going to be on time. And what that means is I'm either going to be perfectly on time or slightly early. This thing's going to be driven. It's going to be on the barrel. I'm not going to be late. First pitch of the game and you swing and you're late and you pop it straight up in the air, you hit it straight in the ground. Like, dude, that's not doing anything for anybody. But that first pitch of the game, you're on time or you're slightly early, you hit a line drive and right fielder catches it. You know what they know now? Shoot, I got to be careful against this team. These guys are ready to hit. Right, you're scaring him out of the zone. Now that next time you come up, he's going to show you a little bit more respect. So hope that helps. That's going to be it for me today, guys. I got to head out here soon. Thanks for all the questions, Freddie. Really appreciate the super chat, man. I think you're like the 3rd super chat I've had. So start encouraging your friends to join the chat as well. No, but really appreciate it, man. Obviously kidding. Great questions, guys. Obviously we got a great weekend of college baseball ahead of us. So exciting. Hey, send me DMs with stuff you're seeing in college baseball, things we should talk about. They're like, hey, Kyle, why did they do this? Hey, Kyle, what was the coach thinking here? Like, send me those questions and we'll talk about it. But have a good weekend, guys. Maybe we do a later night stream sometime this week or this weekend. If not, definitely